The auction hall smelled of oil, smoke, and fear. Metal cages lined both sides of the long, dim room. Inside them, dozens of alien slaves waited, motionless, hopeless, and silent. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark like dying stars. Loud voices filled the air as rich alien buyers shouted their bids. The sound of coins and credits echoed, mixed with laughter and cruelty. Each cage opened for a few seconds, long enough for the next product to be displayed. Then the auctioneer raised his voice. Next, lot 47B, a defective hybrid female. Part organic, part machine. Used as a combat model once, but damaged beyond repair. The crowd laughed. She can't even speak anymore, someone shouted. Look at that arm of rusted junk, another said. From the shadows of the cage, a small figure stepped forward. She was thin and pale, her body covered in scars and half-broken metal plates. Her left eye flickered weakly, showing blue light one moment, dull gray the next. Her mechanical arm twitched with each step. This was Lyra, the one they called the broken toy. She didn't look up. She never did. She had learned long ago that looking into the eyes of her buyers only made things worse. Eyes meant judgment. Eyes meant pain. The auctioneer smiled wide, his teeth shining. A fine deal today, half price for anyone willing to take the risk. Maybe she can still serve as a house drone or test subject. The laughter grew louder. No one wanted her. No one even felt pity. Then, in the middle of the noise, a calm, deep voice spoke. I'll take her. The room went silent for a moment. All heads turned. A man stood near the back of the hall, tall, wearing a dark flight jacket. Human. His face was half hidden under a hood, but his voice carried weight. The auctioneer blinked. A human? You want to buy her? Yes, the man said. Transfer the ownership record. Full price. The crowd erupted in laughter. She's useless, human. Throwing away credits for junk? Humans must be desperate these days. But the man didn't argue. He placed his payment chip on the counter, and the auctioneer's scanner beeped in confirmation. The gate opened with a rusty screech. 2 guards shoved Lyra forward. She stumbled and fell to her knees at the man's feet. The auctioneer grinned. She's all yours. No refunds. The human looked down at her quietly. His eyes were steady, not cruel, not like the others. Lyra waited for the first order or maybe the first kick. She didn't care which. Slaves never had choices, but instead the man said something strange. His voice was calm, low, almost sad. Even broken things deserve a chance. Lyra didn't understand what that meant. She only knew one thing. She now belonged to another master. Another round of pain, another place to serve. Nothing more. The guards dragged her to the docking area, where a small human ship waited. The air smelled different there, cleaner, quieter. She was strapped into a seat and left alone. The engine started with a soft hum, and soon the ship lifted away from the slave planet. Lyra stared out the window as the world below grew smaller. Her reflection looked back at her, a stranger made of metal and scars. Her mind whispered the same words over and over. Don't hope. Don't dream. Just survive. Hours passed. She didn't move. She expected the man to start giving orders, but he said nothing. He sat in the pilot seat silent, eyes fixed on the stars. Finally, he spoke. You have a name? Lyra didn't answer. Her voice system had been damaged long ago. She could still speak, but the sound hurt, both her circuits and her heart. He didn't ask again. He just nodded slowly as if he already knew. You'll be safe for now, he said. Safe. That word felt strange, almost like a lie. She watched him from the corner of her eye. His hands were rough, scarred, a man who'd seen many battles. His uniform was old but clean. On his sleeve was a faded emblem, Terran Free Corps, a soldier. Maybe once a captain. Lyra's head lowered. She thought she saw kindness in his eyes for a moment, but she refused to believe it. Kindness was a trap. Kindness was just another form of control. The ship hummed as it entered faster than light travel. The stars stretched into white lines outside the window. In that endless silence of space, Lyra felt something she hadn't felt in years. Confusion. This human hadn't hurt her, hadn't insulted her, hadn't even chained her. Why? Was it some kind of experiment? A trick? She didn't know. All she knew was that for the first time no one was laughing at her. Her flickering eye reflected the distant stars, bright, then fading again. Maybe she was broken. Maybe he was foolish. But as the ship carried them into the dark, a strange thought crossed her fading mind. What if this time, the story ends differently? And somewhere deep inside her cracked metal heart, a tiny spark of warmth flickered and refused to die. The hum of the engines was soft and steady like a heartbeat in the dark. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. For a moment she didn't know where she was. The air was clean, the lights dim and warm. No chains, no shouting, just silence. She sat up on a metal bed. Her damaged circuits buzzed weakly, sparks flickering from her left shoulder. Pain burned down her side, but she didn't cry out. She was used to pain. Pain was normal. Comfort was not. Across the small cabin, the human sat at a workbench, his back to her. Tools were spread everywhere. Wires, welding pens, and scraps of metal parts. The smell of machine oil filled the room. He turned his head slightly when he heard her move. "You're awake," he said in a calm voice. Lyra didn't answer. Her voice module crackled when she tried to speak, so she just nodded faintly. The man wiped his hands on a cloth and stood. He walked closer slowly so she wouldn't panic. "You're safe here," he said again. "No one will hurt you." Safe, that word again. It made her chest tighten. She didn't believe it, not yet. He looked at her broken arm, the metal twisted, wires torn. "That must hurt," he murmured. "Let me fix it." When he reached out, Lyra flinched. Her instinct screamed, run, hide, fight. But she had nowhere to go. She stayed still, shaking slightly as his hands gently lifted her arm. His touch was careful, not rough, not cold like the scientists or the guards before. He worked silently for a while. The hum of the repair tools filled the air. Sparks danced, lighting his face. His eyes were sharp but kind, focused, not cruel. Finally, he spoke. "You were badly treated," he said softly. "I saw the data tag on your neck. Sold 3 times in 1 year." Lyra's gaze dropped to the floor. She didn't want to remember. He sighed. "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that." Sorry, another strange word. No one had ever said it to her. Not once. After a moment, he finished fixing the wires in her arm and stepped back. "Try moving it now." Lyra slowly lifted her arm. The metal joints clicked, but it moved, smoother than before. She stared at it, confused. He smiled faintly. "Better?" She looked at him, unsure what to say. Her voice came out cracked and low. "Why, help me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he poured a small cup of water and handed it to her. "Drink first," he said. Her metal fingers trembled as she held it. The cool water touched her lips and memories flickered. Years since anyone gave her water without force. When she finished, he finally said, "Because I fix things." She frowned. "Broken things?" He nodded. "Especially broken things." Lyra looked down at her reflection in the cup. Half machine, half flesh, all broken. "I'm not worth fixing," she whispered. He smiled sadly. "That's not your choice to make." Silence fell again, soft and heavy. Outside, the stars drifted by like ghosts. Lyra watched him move back to the pilot seat. He typed a few commands, and the navigation screen glowed with strange symbols. She saw a small mark flashing on the display, a military signal maybe following them. He noticed her staring. "Don't worry about that," he said. "We'll stay off their scanners." "We?" she repeated quietly. "Yeah," he said with a faint grin. "You're part of the crew now, aren't you?" She didn't know how to answer. Crew. The word didn't fit her. She wasn't anyone. She was a thing. But when he said it, something deep inside her, the part that used to dream a brow, stirred again. He leaned back, closing his tired eyes. "Get some rest," he said. "You'll need it." Lyra lay down slowly. The ship's hum felt different now. Less like a machine, more like a heartbeat. She stared at the ceiling, her mind full of questions. Who was this man? Why was he kind to her? And what did he want? Her damaged systems tried to repair themselves as she drifted into uneasy sleep. In her dreams, she saw flashes, bright lights, cold metal tables, human faces wearing masks. She heard voices calling her Subject 47B, and among them, one voice sounded familiar, a man's voice, calm, gentle, the same one who'd bought her. She woke suddenly, heart racing. She looked at the human sleeping in the pilot's chair. His face looked peaceful, but his hands were clenched tight, as if fighting old ghosts. She didn't understand him. But for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like an object. She whispered softly to herself, her voice almost gone. "Why fix what's already broken?" From the chair, his voice came back, quiet, half asleep. Because no one deserves to stay broken. The ship drifted through endless stars, two lost souls heading toward a future neither could imagine. And in that silent darkness, a spark of something new began to glow inside her, fragile, uncertain, but alive. The ship floated through the dark, silent sea of stars. Days passed quietly. Lyra began to heal, both her body and her mind. The man, whose name she finally learned was Raynor, spent most of his time repairing the ship. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his voice was calm, like the steady hum of the engines. He gave her small tasks, simple ones. Sorting tools, checking sensors, cleaning dust from the consoles. For the first time in her life, Lyra worked without fear. No shouting, no punishment, only silence and space. But deep inside her, something felt strange. Every night when she lay in the narrow bunk, she saw flashes in her mind, shapes, faces, rooms she didn't recognize. A white lab, a man's voice saying, "She's special," a child crying, then static and pain. Each time she woke shaking, her heart core flickering like a dying light. One evening, Raynor called her to the engine bay. "I need your help," he said. "Your arm has a connection port. It might sync with the ship's system. I want to test it." Lyra hesitated. "If I connect, I might lose control." He gave her a gentle look. "I'll monitor everything. I won't let that happen." She didn't know why she trusted him, but she did. He guided her to the main console, where cables ran like veins through metal. She pressed her hand against the panel. Tiny needles extended, clicking into her circuits. A soft light filled the room. At first, nothing happened. Then her vision blurred. The hum of the ship faded. A voice echoed in her head, not Raynor's. "Subject 47B, emotional core malfunction detected. Begin reset protocol." Her breath caught. Images flooded her mind again, clearer this time. White walls, cold air, scientists in human uniforms walking around her. She was lying on a metal table surrounded by bright lights. One of them looked down at her. A younger version of Raynor. "She doesn't belong in this project," a voice said. "She's too human," the younger Raynor replied. Lyra gasped. The vision shattered. She ripped her hand away from the console. Sparks flew and the lights in the room flickered. Raynor rushed to her side. "Lyra, are you okay?" She stumbled back, breathing hard, her mechanical eye glowing bright blue. You were there." His expression froze. "What? In the lab?" she shouted, voice trembling with rage and pain. "I saw you. You helped them." Raynor's eyes darkened. He didn't deny it. He just stood there silent, guilt heavy in his face. Lyra's hand shook. "You lied. You said I was safe. You were one of them." He took a slow step toward her. "Yes, I was. But I didn't know what they were doing at first." "Liar." He raised his voice, and not in anger, but in desperation. "Listen to me. I quit the program when I saw what they turned you into. I tried to stop them, but I couldn't. They called you a failure and sold you like trash. I've been looking for you ever since." His words cut through the noise in her head. She didn't know if she believed him. The pain of remembering was too sharp, too cruel. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you care?" He looked down, his voice quiet. "Because I helped make you, and I couldn't live with that. I had to fix what I broke." The ship went silent. Only the low hum of the engine filled the air. Lyra turned away, her chest aching with confusion. She wanted to scream, to hit something, to run, but where would she go? Space had no escape. That night she sat alone by the observation window. The stars drifted past like silver dust. Her reflection stared back. Part girl, part machine, all broken memories. She thought about the lab, the humans, the tests. The way they called her Subject 47B. And she thought about Raynor, the man who once stood in that same lab, and now claimed to save her. Her metal fingers touched the glass. It felt cold, like her heart. "Was I ever real?" she whispered. No one answered. Only the stars watched. Behind her, Raynor stood quietly, not daring to come closer. His face looked tired, haunted. He knew the truth had wounded her more than any weapon could. Finally, he said softly, "You have every right to hate me. But I didn't come to lie to you. I came to give you your freedom." She didn't turn around. After a long silence, she said in a low voice, "Freedom doesn't fix what's broken." Then she walked back to her bunk, leaving him alone in the dim light of the control room. Raynor sat down heavily, rubbing his eyes. Outside, the ship drifted onward, two souls connected by guilt and pain. Neither of them noticed the small red light blinking on the control panel, a signal flashing quietly. Incoming transmission. Unidentified pirate vessels detected. The warning light blinked red across the ship's bridge. Raynor stared at it for a long second before he cursed softly and began pressing commands on the console. Pirates, he said under his breath. They must have picked up our trail. The screen showed 3 ships, small, fast, and armed. Space scavengers, hunters of lonely travelers. He flipped the comms switch. "Lyra, get to the engine room." "Lock yourself in." She appeared at the doorway, her metal hand gripping the frame. "What's happening?" "Raiders. They'll try to board us." He loaded a rifle from the wall compartment. "Stay hidden." Lyra didn't move. Her eyes glowed faintly. "They'll kill you." Raynor gave a short, grim smile. "Maybe, but they won't take you." The ship shook as a blast hit the rear hull. Metal screamed. Warning lights flashed everywhere. "Brace for impact," he shouted. The pirates' ships clamped onto the hull with magnetic hooks. A heavy clang echoed through the corridors. Boarding. Raynor aimed his rifle toward the hatchway, breathing steady, waiting for the breach. Lyra crouched low behind a console, her broken heart pounding with electric rhythm. Then the sound came. Boom! The outer door blew apart. Smoke poured in. Shadows moved through the haze, armed figures in worn armor. Raynor fired first. The rifle roared, lighting the corridor in blue flashes. One pirate fell. Another ducked behind cover. Bullets of plasma hissed through the air, melting walls and floor panels. Lyra pressed her hands over her ears. She hated this sound, the sound of violence, the sound of her past. Raynor shouted, "Stay back!" But she saw a pirate sneak up behind him. Something inside her snapped. Without thinking, she ran forward. Her mechanical arm extended, sharp edges folding out from the wrist. In one motion, she struck, fast and silent. The pirate fell, weapon clattering away. Raynor turned, shocked. "Lyra!" But she was already moving again, her eyes glowing bright blue. Movements too quick for the human eye. For a moment, she wasn't a slave or a victim. She was a weapon, the kind they had built her to be. The last pirate raised his gun at her. She caught the barrel with her metal hand, twisted it aside, and punched him hard. He crashed against the wall, out cold. Silence. Only the hum of the ship remained. Smoke drifted slowly in the air. Raynor lowered his rifle. His voice was quiet. "You fought like a soldier." Lyra stood trembling, looking down at her shaking hands. "I don't want to be this," she whispered. He stepped closer, careful not to frighten her. "You saved my life." Her glowing eye dimmed. "I didn't want you to die." He smiled faintly. "That's a good reason." They both turned as another explosion rattled the hull. The pirates' main ship had locked a tractor beam onto them, pulling the smaller craft closer. Raynor cursed. "They're not done yet." He ran to the control console, typing commands fast. "We can't outrun them." "Our engines are damaged," Lyra's mind raced. "What if I connect again?" "No," he said sharply. "It almost fried your system last time." "But I can boost the engine power," she insisted. "I can reroute my energy core." He stared at her. "That could kill you." She met his eyes and calm, steady. "You said no one deserves to stay broken." Before he could stop her, she pressed her hand to the power conduit. The ship's lights flared. Energy surged through the walls, through her veins, through her heart. Pain ripped through her body, but she didn't pull away. Raynor shouted her name, but she only whispered, "Hold on." The engines roared to life, glowing brighter than ever before. The tractor beam cracked, then shattered. The pirate's ship spun out of control, drifting into the void. The human vessel sped away, flames trailing behind. When the danger finally passed, Raynor turned off the engines and rushed to her side. Lyra had collapsed near the power core, her skin pale, her circuits sparking. He knelt beside her, lifting her gently.
"Lyra, stay with me." Her voice was faint.
"We made it?" He nodded quickly. "Yeah, we made it," she smiled weakly. "Good." Her systems flickered, then went dark for a moment. Raynor's heart pounded. He carried her to the med bay and laid her on the repair table. As he worked patching wires and checking her heart core, he whispered, "You saved me twice today." Her eyes fluttered open, glowing softly. "Maybe. I just didn't want to lose the only human who saw me." Raynor froze, his breath catching. Then he smiled. A real, gentle smile and said, "You're not a thing. Lyra, you never were." The ship drifted quietly through the stars once more. The battle was over, but something new had begun. Two broken souls had protected each other, and deep within Lyra's chest, her repaired heart pulsed once, strong, human, and alive. But neither of them noticed the small message flashing on the comm screen. Incoming signal. Terran command. Urgent. Message. Return the experiment immediately. The ship floated in quiet space again. Stars glimmered beyond the window like cold eyes, watching everything yet saying nothing. Lyra lay on the repair table, her body still weak from the fight. Sparks flickered now and then from her chest plate, where her glowing core pulsed slowly. One soft light, then another. Raynor sat beside her, arms crossed, staring at the comm screen. The message still blinked on repeat. Return the experiment immediately. Project Eve, classified. He hadn't told her about it yet. He didn't want to. But Lyra already knew something was wrong. When she woke, she saw the message reflected in his eyes before he could hide it. "What? Experiment?" she whispered. Raynor didn't answer right away. He turned off the monitor, his jaw tight. "Rest. You use too much energy." She shook her head. "Tell me the truth." He looked at her for a long moment and then sighed. He knew he couldn't lie anymore. "Your name," he said softly, "is not Lyra." She blinked. "Then what is it?" He hesitated. "Your full ID was Lyra 47, short for Lifeform Integrative Replica Android. You were part of a program called Project Eve. It was supposed to create new life, half machine, half human." She stared at him, silent. Her eye flickered faintly. "So I'm not real?" Raynor shook his head. "You're as real as I am. You think, you feel, you dream." But they didn't want that. They only wanted control. He walked to the window, watching the stars move slowly. "I was one of the engineers. I joined because I believed we could build peace, machines and humans together. But the higher command changed everything. They wanted soldiers, not souls." He turned back to her, eyes filled with regret. "When you started showing emotions, they called it a malfunction. They said you were broken. They wanted to shut you down permanently." Lyra's voice trembled. "But I remember pain, fear. They taught me to obey. They made me fight." "Yes," he said. "They erased your memories and reprogrammed you for combat. But I couldn't watch it anymore. I downloaded your original core data, the part that still had emotions, and tried to free you. But the lab found out. I barely escaped. By the time I tracked you again, you were already sold off as a slave." Her hands clenched weakly on the table. "You made me, and then lost me." He nodded, his voice heavy. "Yes, and I've been trying to make it right ever since." She looked away, her eyes filling with light, tears or maybe broken circuits. "So everything I am, everything I feel, it's just code?" Raynor stepped closer, kneeling beside her. "No, it's not code anymore. It's you. You became something they couldn't program, someone who could love, feel, and choose." That's what scared them. For a long time, neither spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the engines and the slow pulse of her heart core. Finally, she whispered, "Then why does it hurt to know the truth?" He smiled sadly. "Because you're alive, Lyra. That's what life does." She turned her head toward him. "What will they do if they find us?" "They'll take you back," he said quietly. "Dissect you. Erase everything that makes you, you." She sat up slowly, pain flashing across her face. "Then we run," he shook his head. "They'll track my ship. Every human channel is under Terran command." "Then I'll leave," she said. "You'll be safe." "No," Raynor said firmly. "I didn't come this far to lose you again." She looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time, she saw more than guilt in his eyes. She saw sorrow, yes, but also warmth, and something deeper, care. She reached out, her metal fingers brushing his hand. Why risk your life for me? He hesitated, then said quietly, because when I looked into your eyes in that lab, I realized something. You weren't a machine pretending to be human. You were the most human thing I'd ever seen. Her voice softened. And what about you? He smiled faintly. Maybe I was the machine all along. They both laughed, just a little, and the sound felt strange, unfamiliar, but good. The moment was broken by a loud beep from the radar screen. Multiple signals appeared, Terran ships, fast, armed, closing in. Rayner's expression hardened. They've found us. Lyra stood slowly, her system still weak, but her resolve strong. Then we don't hide anymore. What are you planning? He asked. Her glowing eye turned bright blue. You said I was made for something more. Maybe it's time I find out what that is. Rayner grabbed his jacket, loading his weapon. We'll do it together. As they prepared for what was coming, the message from Terran Command flashed one last time on the screen. Eve prototype located. Capture order authorized. Lyra stared at the glowing text, her voice steady. If they want their experiment back, she said, her hand tightening into a fist, they'll have to fight for it. Outside, the stars burned brighter, like the calm before a storm. The alarms began before dawn, a sharp, cold sound that echoed through every corridor of the ship. Red lights flashed like angry eyes. Rayner was already at the controls when Lyra rushed in, her body still covered in faint burn marks from the last repair. They've locked onto us, he said, voice tight. Terran interceptors. 4 ships, maybe 5. Lyra's heart core flickered faster. They want me. They'll get both of us if we don't move. The engines roared as Rayner threw the ship into full thrust. The stars outside stretched into long, silver lines as they shot through space. Behind them, explosions bloomed. Silent fire in the black void. They're closing in, Lyra shouted. Rayner gritted his teeth. Hold on. The ship dived into an asteroid belt, rocks spinning around them like a storm of stone. The hull groaned. Fragments scraped against the metal skin of the ship. They won't risk following us in here, Rayner said. But he was wrong. Blue light flashed. Terran ships had followed them into the belt, their weapons slicing through asteroids like paper. Lyra gripped the co-pilot's chair. Let me help, Rayner shook his head. You're too weak. Rest. Her voice hardened. I'm not weak anymore. Before he could stop her, she plugged a cable from her arm into the ship's main control socket. Her mechanical eye glowed bright blue. Lyra. Her voice came through the speakers, calm but cold. I can see their formation. Calculating escape route. The ship turned sharply, almost too fast for human reflexes. Lasers streaked past, missing by inches. Asteroids exploded behind them, lighting the darkness like fireworks. Rayner's jaw dropped. You're flying the ship? Her voice was steady. We're flying it, together. For the first time, man and machine worked as one, his instincts, her precision. Every move she made was synced with his, like 2 halves of the same heartbeat. But the enemy kept coming. One Terran ship caught up, firing a direct missile. The explosion hit their left wing. The ship spun, alarms screaming. Rayner shouted, We've lost stabilizers. Lyra's circuits burned from the overload, but she refused to disconnect. Redirecting power to shields. You'll fry your core, he yelled. I'll live, she said, though her voice trembled. Sparks flew from her chest. The light inside her flickered wildly. Rayner slammed the emergency lever, forcing the ship toward a massive asteroid. We'll hide there, hang on. The ship scraped the surface and slid into a deep crater, disappearing from the enemy scanners. Silence followed, only the faint hiss of damaged engines. Rayner leaned back, panting. We're off their radar, for now. He looked at her, still connected, eyes dim, breathing uneven. Lyra, disconnect. You're burning yourself out. She smiled faintly. You said, no one deserves to stay broken. He reached for her hand, pulling the cable free. Her body fell limp against him, smoke rising from her circuits. He carried her to the med bay and laid her down gently. Her eyes opened slightly. "Did we make it?" He nodded. "Yeah, we made it." She smiled weakly. "Then it was worth it." He brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. "Don't you dare shut down now." Her faint laugh filled the silence. "You sound more like a machine than I do." He chuckled softly. "Guess you're rubbing off on me." Outside the ship, the asteroid field shimmered, endless, silent, peaceful for now. While she rested, Raynor checked the scanners. One signal caught his attention, a strange encrypted beacon deep within the asteroid cluster. It carried an old code, Project Eve Research Colony. His heart skipped. They had a base here? Hours later, when Lyra woke, he told her. She stared at the screen quietly. "Then maybe there are others like me. Or records about you," he said. "If we go there, we might learn how to shut down their trackers permanently." She nodded slowly. "Let's find it." The engines groaned, but came alive. They followed the beacon until a huge, half-ruined station appeared, floating in the shadows of the rocks. Lights flickered weakly across its surface like dying stars. Inside, the halls were silent. Dust floated like ghosts. Old computers hummed weakly. They reached the main lab. Lyra stepped closer to a shattered screen and pressed her palm against it. It flickered on, showing a video log, a woman in a lab coat speaking. Day 312. Subject Lyra 47 shows emotional stability. She feels sadness, curiosity, even empathy. Her heart core responds to human emotion. If she ever learns love, she will be unstoppable. The screen went dark. Lyra's breath caught. "Love?" Raynor looked at her gently. "Seems that's what makes you unique." She turned to him, her eyes shining softly. "Then maybe that's what they fear most, not my power but my heart." He smiled. "Then let's make sure they never take it from you again." Outside, engines roared faintly in the distance, Terran ships returning to the hunt. Lyra closed her eyes, her voice calm and sure. "Then it's time I stop running," Raynor frowned. "What do you mean?" She touched the ship's console. "I can merge with the AI, become part of it. I can protect us." He stepped forward, alarmed. "Lyra, that could erase your mind." Her voice softened. "Maybe, or maybe it will set me free." Before he could reply, she smiled, the soft human smile that once saved him, and whispered, "Thank you for fixing me, Raynor." Her glowing heart pulsed once, brighter than ever, and as she connected to the ship's system, the lights around them flared, bright as a sunrise in space. The moment Lyra linked herself to the ship, everything changed. The lights glowed brighter, the engines hummed smoother, and the walls themselves seemed to breathe. Raynor felt it, her presence everywhere. "The ship was alive, Lyra," he said softly. "Can you hear me?" Her voice echoed through the speakers, soft and calm. "Yes, Raynor. I'm here." He looked around the cockpit. Every screen flickered with blue light, the same blue as her eyes. Her voice carried warmth now, like wind through glass. "I can see everything. The stars, the ships, even your heartbeat." Raynor swallowed hard. "Then you know what's coming." "Yes," she said. "They're close. 10 Terran vessels. Full strike force." He gripped the controls. "We can still run." "No," Lyra replied gently. "They'll never stop. If I run, they'll find you again. If I fight, maybe you live." He slammed his hand on the console. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself." Her voice softened. "You already did once, and when you saved me. Let me return it." The radar filled with red dots. The Terran fleet closed in, engines blazing like angry suns. Over the comms, a cold voice spoke. "Unidentified vessel, power down and surrender the prototype. Resistance will be met with destruction." Raynor turned off the comm. "Over my dead body." Lyra's laugh came through the speakers, soft, almost human. "You really shouldn't say things like that." The first volley hit. The ship shook violently. Panels sparked, alarms screamed. Raynor held on tight. "Lyra, shields." "Already up," she said calmly. "Hold steady." Her voice changed, lower, resonant, as she took full control. The engines roared, glowing white-hot. The ship spun around and fired back. Blue energy beams shot through space, tearing through the first enemy line. "Lyra!" Rayner shouted. "How are you doing this?" Her voice was distant now. "I use the lab data. I can rewrite the system. Bend the code. For once, I'm the one in control." Her words sent chills through him. The Terran ship surrounded them, forming a cage of fire. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. "Rayner, I need you to eject, now." He froze. "No, I'm staying. If you stay, you die. I can't protect you and fight them at the same time." He shook his head fiercely. "Then we die together." Her tone softened, tender. "You once told me that no one deserves to stay broken. You fixed me, Rayner. Now let me do the same for you." He looked at the glowing core in the center of the cockpit, her heart pulsing within the ship, and realized he couldn't stop her. Tears burned in his eyes. "Lyra, go," she whispered. He pressed the emergency release. The cockpit sealed around him and shot out into the void like a comet. From the escape pod, he saw her ship turn toward the fleet, one small vessel against 10 giants. For a moment, everything was still. Then the stars lit up. Lyra's ship flared with impossible light. The Terran fleet fired all at once, but her shields held, not by power, but by will. She spoke softly, her voice echoing through the comms one last time. "They called me a machine without a soul, but I loved, I hoped, and that makes me human." The ship's heart, her heart, glowed brighter than any star. Then in a flash of blue and white, it exploded, a silent, beautiful burst that erased the fleet in a single wave of light. Rayner shielded his eyes. When he opened them, there was only calm. No warships, no wreckage, just drifting particles glowing softly like dust in sunlight. The escape pod floated through the quiet, endless dark. Rayner pressed his hand to the window. "Lyra, you did it," the comm crackled faintly. A soft voice whispered through static. "You fixed me, Rayner. Now I'll watch the stars for you." He closed his eyes. A single tear floated free in the weightless air. Weeks later, his pod was found by a salvage ship. They asked him who he was, where he came from. He only said one thing. "I lost someone who wasn't supposed to exist." He rebuilt his ship, piece by piece, but left one part untouched, a small crystal core, glowing faintly blue. He placed it on the control panel every time he flew. Whenever he looked at it, he swore he could hear her voice in the hum of the engines, soft, calm, alive. And sometimes when he passed through the darkness between stars, a strange light would appear beside him, a shimmer shaped like a girl. Smiling, watching, she was never a toy. She was never just a machine. She was the proof that even in the cold emptiness of space, a broken heart can still learn to love and become more human than any human ever was.